and welcome to yet another episode of CEO podcast series at Digital Health News, where we dive deep into the minds of some of the most innovative and impactful leaders in healthcare. Today, we are joined by Mr. Prashant Warier, co-founder and CEO at Qure.ai. Now, Prashant has had a fascinating journey from IIT Delhi, Georgia Tech to working with some of the top companies globally in the US. Then he came back to India, worked with Fractal Analytics, also founded an adtech company and sold it. But as they say, once you're bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, it never really goes away. So he founded a company that is now transforming radiology with the help of artificial intelligence. Qure.ai today is one of the most valuable companies globally in this sphere. So let's talk to Prashant and understand his entrepreneurial journey, the challenges and triumphs of building Qure.ai, and where the future is headed for AI in radiology. Thank you so much, Prashant. Thank you so much for joining us on DHN. Well, you have had an incredible year, close to 24 patents at Qure.ai. Your solution has been deployed in more than 90 countries. So you have had a fantastic year. I just wanted to know where it all started. What was that eureka moment for you?
So for me, I think I have been running startups for the last 12 years now. Started in 2012, my previous startup. And I have worked in many industries. I mean, I did a PhD in operations research where I was optimizing trucking networks. Then went on to work for SAP where I was doing price optimization for various products from the milk that you buy in a store to fashion products like a shirt or a pant or suit, right? So figured out demand for that, the pricing for those kinds of products, how the price should change when seasons change. So I built those kinds of models, then came to India back in 2012 and started a company which was in the advertising technology space, which is basically taking data from a lot of e-commerce companies and using that to target ads to users based on their previous behavior. So what you look at online, what you bought, I'm looking at all that information to figure out what ad I should show you. And basically what it was doing is predicting the next transaction, predicting what you were likely to buy, and then showing you an ad for that particular product or products of that kind. And that company got acquired by Fractal Analytics back in 2015. And I was chatting with the CEO of Fractal about what I would do within Fractal. And I was chief data scientist of Fractal, so that is how we started. And with Shrikant, we were having this conversation on what we could do. And we said, okay, let's build a product company. Let's build a product company within Fractal, incubated by Fractal, and then of course, growing independently. And as a product company, we're thinking about which areas to really focus on. And for me, I think healthcare was important because I felt like I've done a lot of other industries from trucking to fashion and felt like this was an industry where AI could really create an impact. And especially with the kind of models that were coming about in 2014, 2015 around understanding everyday images, we said, can we apply the same models to radiology imaging and can we build algorithms which can radically transform radiology or pathology imaging? So that is how the idea of Qure came about and started on that journey. Of course, I didn't have any background in healthcare, so started on that journey, and then of course now we are here 8 years later.
Absolutely. But healthcare is one of the most heavily regulated industry. When you're building AI for radiology, you, as you rightly mentioned, you have been an outsider to this industry. Now you have built Qure.ai, which is one of the most valuable companies in the sphere globally. What are the challenges that you faced initially?
So I think one good thing that happened to me that we had funding from Fractal for the first several years. So funding was not an issue. I mean, we already had funding. There was backing to do something really unique and build a lot of IP. So we were able to really invest into building high quality algorithms. We didn't have a pressure that we have to generate revenue in 1 year, 2 years. We really were able to build it out and build technology, acquire the data that is required to build technology, have the talent in place. I mean, again, building these kinds of models, data science models requires extremely high quality talent, and especially back then when the field was so nascent, right? Absolutely. So we got that talent pool, we got the data and we were able to build quality algorithms. That was an advantage for us. But again, healthcare, like you said, I mean, it's very regulated. It is slow. Healthcare, IT itself is very slow, right? Integrating with hospitals is slow. Doctors adopting new technologies in the clinical workflow is again a challenge. So multiple challenges we had to face to get to a point where our products could actually be commercialized, including the fact that, I mean, in healthcare, unlike in any other industry, you have to show that there is evidence of an algorithm performing. You cannot just you cannot just launch an algorithm and test it out and see whether it performs or not. You have to fully evaluate it. You have to create evidence of its performance. You have to get the regulatory clearances to launch it, and only then you can actually start commercializing it. So I think that is how healthcare has been very different. And fortunately, again for us, we sort of learned through those obstacles. And coming from outside of healthcare, we felt like every obstacle can be surmounted, and we had the optimism that we can solve these problems.
Absolutely. Does it give you a very different perspective? Because for those who have been working in healthcare, they know the hurdles, but they also feel internally that, okay, these hurdles are there. For you, it is an obstacle to cross, in a sense that, okay, I have to, I have to face this obstacle and I have to overcome it. You have a very different perspective.
Yeah, so I think that's a very good point. In fact, I think probably it worked in our favor that I was not from a healthcare background, and none of our initial team founding members were from a healthcare background, or very few. So what it gave us was the confidence that we can solve problems and we can do stuff which somebody who's in the industry feels like, there's so much obstacle to doing this and I cannot cross those obstacles, right? Whereas we are coming in saying that, okay, we know how to solve problems, we know how to cross obstacles, so we'll figure it out. And so that gave us an optimism, which I have seen. In fact, even at Qure, I've seen that people who come in from a healthcare background feel that, okay, some of these things cannot be achieved because they have not been achieved till now.
They have that mental obstacle.
But because we are not from healthcare, we don't feel that. We feel like, okay, if it definitely it's good. Definitely there is value add to the patient, value add to the doctor, value add to the hospital system. Why would we not be able to achieve that? And so we come in with that. And there are, of course, healthcare has a lot of protocols and everybody follows protocols. So obviously, when you bring in something which is not part of the current protocol, there is always that feeling that, okay, this is going to be a long-term process. And it is a long-term process, but you can actually change that protocol. You can figure out how to bring AI into the protocol. You can figure out how to change the protocols to really make the process more efficient for the patient and get patient treatment faster, get patient diagnosis faster. All of those are possible. The only thing is you have to be patient, and that's why they call the patient a patient, right? But patient and wait for it to be, wait for the outcome to be achieved. Yeah.
Absolutely. I read on your website that you have crossed more than 20 million screenings globally. That's an impressive number. What exactly is it that Qure.ai does?
So we build AI which can automatically interpret radiology images. So a chest X-ray, a musculoskeletal X-ray, chest CT, head CT, a CT angio, some ultrasound images. So you're building AI which, when you go to a radiologist, when you go to a doctor and they recommend a radiology scan, they recommend an X-ray or a CT, you go and get a CT. Now that scan is fully digital. It is read by a radiologist, sometimes not in the hospital also. In fact, in the US, most of the radiology reads are happening outside of the hospital. Absolutely. Somebody sitting at home is reading those scans. Somebody sitting in another country is reading those scans, right? So now that process of radiology reading is something which, especially because radiologists may not be always available, it sometimes gets delayed, right? An X-ray read for TB, for example, we do chest X-ray. We have an algorithm which can interpret chest X-rays to detect tuberculosis. Now, what happens in the community when you go out and screen for TB? So there are all these TB screening programs which will go out into the community, take an X-ray machine, do X-rays for people who are presumptive TB patients who have some indication, some symptoms of TB. Now, the X-ray is taken, but the radiology read for that X-ray sometimes takes a long time, especially because TB is in general in the poorer parts of the world, right? Across India or across any other geography, it's typically in the not the wealthiest parts of any country, right? So, and then you don't have enough radiologists catering to that particular community. A lot of times the reads take several days, sometimes even weeks. And that is where we are coming in. We are able to make it happen within 30 seconds. So now an X-ray is taken by an algorithm, taken by a health worker, and it is read by an algorithm within 30 seconds. And you can start the next treatment protocol, which is basically once the X-ray is positive, you do a sputum test for that patient. You can start that immediately. Before this, it used to go back and then somebody would read that scan. And then think about the patient who is typically somebody who might be working at a job and they come in for the X-ray screening and then they don't come back again. So you had what is called a loss to follow-up. A lot of patients come in for the X-ray, but then they don't come back for the corresponding the follow-up sputum test. So we were able to make that happen instantly within 30 seconds using the power of AI. So that is what the algorithm does. In the case of stroke, for example, somebody comes into a hospital and they are a stroke patient, they have symptoms of stroke. You take a CT scan, non-contrast CT, you sometimes take a CT angio, or you take an MRI. And now what you're looking for is, one is that you're looking for whether there's a bleed or not in the CT scan. If there is no bleed, you can administer what is called a thrombolysis, which is basically an anticoagulant which will dissolve the clot, right? The other thing that typically you recommend for stroke patients is thrombectomy, where you insert a stent and then go and remove that clot from inside the brain, right? Now, thrombolysis can be done anywhere. Thrombectomy is done only in some specialized sites, right? So what we are doing is we are creating a whole pathway for that diagnosis. Because, for example, think of it like there is a hub hospital which can do a thrombectomy. There are all these spoke hospitals that are doing the CTs. They're getting the stroke patients. They can thrombolize, they can do a thrombolysis, but they cannot do a thrombectomy. So we are basically creating an alert mechanism where whenever a scan is taken in these spoke hospitals, we automatically identify whether within a minute, we identify if there is a bleed or no bleed, so that you can do a thrombolysis. We identify if there is a large vessel occlusion on the CT angio, and we can alert the doctors both at the spoke hospitals and the hub hospital that this is potentially a stroke patient that needs a thrombectomy. And we can ensure that transfer happens from the spoke to the hub, so that more patients are getting thrombectomies. And we have seen substantial increases in the number of thrombectomies performed in some of our hub hospitals after we deployed our algorithm. And so that AI is making a difference because it is reading a scan instantly, versus again, every hour that goes by, every minute that goes by, brain cells are dying. So you want to be able to get that patient a treatment as soon as possible. And that is what AI is enabling again, that fact that you can move that patient faster based upon the AI read of the CT scan or the CT angio.
That's great. So basically, Qure.ai works as a clinical decision support system and reduces turnaround time for the radiology scans.
That is one of the use cases, but there is another use case. So I'll talk about one more use case, which is that we detect lung cancer on chest X-rays. Now, lung cancer is a condition where 85% of cases are diagnosed late. And when you diagnose a lung cancer case late, the survival rates are really abysmal. I mean, you're talking about less than 5% survival for late stage lung cancer patients. And what we are able to do is help identify lung cancer early through our technology. And the way we approached it, and this is in partnership with AstraZeneca that we started this program, is we said, okay, there are 1.3 billion chest X-rays taken every year for routine reasons. Right. All of us go and get a medical checkup done, health checkup done, we have an X-ray. You go for any infectious condition, anytime you have a cough or a cold, you get an X-ray. Immigration, sometimes you need an X-ray. TB screening, there are X-rays being done, right? So many reasons why you get those X-rays. And on those routine X-rays, not done for lung cancer, we are able to find lung cancer risk. So think of it as a surveillance kind of tool, where a tool is looking at every X-ray, identifying a patient who potentially has lung cancer and triaging them towards the CT. And what this does is that out of 100 patients that are getting X-rayed for various reasons, we are able to find one potential lung cancer patient. High malignancy risk is what we call that from an algorithm perspective. And if you identify 10 of those people who are at risk of lung cancer, we are seeing that almost 2 are actually getting diagnosed with lung cancer. And this is compared to a CT-based screening program. There are CT-based screening programs also where you will do low-dose CT scans. And there the positivity rates are anywhere from 1.5 to 2%. So through an X-ray-based triaging for lung cancer, we are seeing that we can find almost the positivity rate of CTs is almost 10x, from 1.5 to 2 to 20 with the use of AI to read the X-rays. So that is again a huge value prop. One is the diagnosis of a patient early. Second is also that you are able to reduce the read time, because again, a week goes by, you potentially are losing a week for a patient who could start treatment right away or as soon as possible. So as soon as possible, you can start treatment that is very valuable for that patient. So not only that, I'm just saying that one is when I say early diagnosis, the reality is that patient would not have been diagnosed for months or years because that nodule was really small. Right. And until it becomes big enough for it to cause symptoms, it would not have been diagnosed. The second part is that even if X-ray would have been read, the X-ray would have happened much later. We're able to make that happen much sooner now.
One of the criticism that we have seen with artificial intelligence algorithms is that much of the data is trained on, say, that is non-Indian population. The data comes from them. In a setting where you have to deploy your algorithm in Indian hospitals or on Indian populace or any other populace for that matter in Southeast Asia or anywhere else, how does Qure.ai has ensured that your data has proper representation and the diversity?
So fortunately, it's the other way around for us. Most of our data comes from India, firstly. So that is one thing. But again, from our perspective, we get asked the same questions because we work in 90 countries. So we have tried a lot and we have worked a lot towards getting data from various parts of the world. So we have data from practically all continents now. We have data from maybe 20, 30 countries now because we are collecting that data both for building the algorithms and also for testing out the algorithms, the accuracy of the algorithms. So again, that is a problem that you have to solve. Any AI for any particular use case, unless the data is diverse, it will not perform as well as you want it to. So we always try to add more diversity to the data, and we keep on acquiring data from more hospital groups across the world, across multiple disease areas also. So making sure that even some things which are, let's say if you have 1,000 X-rays, some condition might not even occur in even one of them. Right. You have to have 100,000 X-rays to get one particular type of condition, right? So again, that means that you have to have 10 million plus X-rays to be able to build a high quality algorithm there. Or you have to figure out again some augmentation schemes, data augmentation, which is again AI-based augmentation, AI-based generation of data, synthetic data. Multiple ways you can solve those problems, but we are again doing a lot of different things from a algorithmic perspective to solve for that lack of some of the instances in the database.
You have one of the largest database in the world, I think, for radiology scans. Do you think this is what separates you from your competitors? There are a lot of radiology AI startups now. So do you think this is what sets you apart from them?
I think for us, what separates is that data is one of them. The quality of the algorithms is second one. The evidence that we have 50 plus publications now across some of the top journals from Lancet to Nature Scientific and so on. So that is a big separation for us. The regulatory clearance. So again, that is a very, very hard task to get that. They're cleared in about close to 90 countries now. So most Southeast Asian, African countries, most of Latin America, US, UK, Canada, Australia, we have those clearances. So that is again a big deal. The fact that you are cleared in all these countries, regulatory clearance is not easy to come by, and we have figured that out. So I think all of those become differentiators, but I think the biggest differentiator for us is the fact that we are very focused on improving patient outcome. We don't even like to be called a radiology AI company. While we are doing radiology AI, the reality is we are improving a patient outcome for tuberculosis, for lung cancer, for stroke, for heart failure, and other conditions. So we are really thinking deep into that diagnostic process rather than saying, okay, we will help a radiologist read a scan. So.
Absolutely. One more criticism that we get for artificial intelligence companies is whether the role of radiologist or a physician will be obsolete if artificial intelligence comes into play. Now, we know that India is facing shortage of radiologists. Most of them are centered in urban settings, and in rural areas, there is a shortage of radiologists. But just to address this concern, would you say that with the integration of artificial intelligence, role of radiologist will be obsolete, or this will be a sort of a support system for the radiologist?
See, I don't think there is any reason to even think that any role will be obsolete for a radiologist. The reality is today, there are so many X-rays taken, radiologists are not able to read all of them. So many X-rays in India are not being read. Many hospitals you go to, even government hospitals, do not see that X-rays are getting a report. Private hospitals also same thing, right? Many other countries don't have X-ray reporting. Even countries like UK with the NHS, which is one of the most prestigious healthcare institutions in the world, there is a huge backlog of X-rays. Their X-ray reads are sometimes 30 to 60 days. So again, it's not like X-ray reading is something that is important for a radiologist because they're reading CTs, MRs, ultrasounds, PET scans. So automating X-ray is something that will help everybody because it's not like the X-ray volume has gone down. There are still as many X-rays as were taken maybe 5 years back, maybe more, in fact, more than what we're taking. That market is also growing. So there are X-rays being taken, somebody has to read them. And that is where AI can play a role, automating a lot of X-ray reporting. So that is one area where we really believe that there is a huge opportunity. The second is when you are looking at triaging patients, somebody comes in with an emergent condition, you want to be able to read that and act on that patient as fast as possible. A human being may not be available 24 hours, right? But if we alert that this is a stroke patient or this is a patient with a fracture or any other condition, right? You can create those alerts, create those notifications, and ensure that the diagnosis happens much faster, powered by AI. So again, that is a big use case. So solving for speed. Those are the two big things that AI can do. And of course, AI will get better and better at reading images. And we will see. I mean, again, I think in general, I mean, AI has a lot of potential, but it has still to be proven. For example, 10 years back, 15 years back, everybody said that we'll have autonomous cars around the world. Right now, there is only one city in San Francisco. Even there is one sort of company which is operating with autonomous cars, right? And that is also in very sort of in a very small area with very special circumstances. So again, the point is that technology can be very good, but again, it has to be safe and it has to be regulated. You have to have the right regulatory clearances to be able to use it as a autonomous tool, as a replacement to a radiologist. So I think those are things which will happen over long term. So I don't even want to speculate on that. But I think where AI is right now, it is helping radiologists improve their reads.
Absolutely. Prashant, Qure started, I think, before COVID. In COVID, a lot of companies faced a challenge with COVID-19 onset. I read somewhere that you pivoted into COVID-19 scan reads. How did that happen? Tell us about that.
So we had an X-ray AI tool which could detect various kinds of findings on the chest X-ray. At that time, we had about 15 to 20 findings that were detected on a chest X-ray. And a couple of those findings were consolidations, nodules, and we could also detect where the consolidation was. Consolidation is like as a white patch in an X-ray.
Yes.
And you can figure out where that white patch is. The algorithm, what it could do back then in 2020 was basically draw contour around that, around the consolidation on the lungs. And it can tell you which lung it is infecting. So upper lung, lower lung, left, right, upper, middle, low. So there are 5 lobes. It can figure out the lobe. It can figure out the size of the opacity. And what we were doing is that at that time, initially the RT-PCR tests were not so common. It was very hard to get an RT-PCR test for the first 4-5 months across the world, not only in India, right? So we created a triage mechanism. By looking at the X-ray, we could say that, there is some indication of COVID in this X-ray, consolidation on both sides. Basically, there were certain characteristics indicative of COVID. And we built an algorithm to figure out whether the X-ray had COVID. And we did that in a matter of a week and a half. We sort of pivoted the algorithm to figure out if there was COVID or not. It's not a diagnostic tool. It's not going to say that, okay, this is COVID or not. But it will say that this could be COVID. And then if it is COVID, then you can do the RT-PCR test. So it ensured that you're not testing everybody through RT-PCR because the number of tests were limited, but only people who actually are at risk of having COVID. Of course, RT-PCR tests became way more cheaper, way more available over 1 year. So after that, the algorithm was not that effective. But for the initial 5-6 months, this was very useful. We were deployed in the BMC, we were deployed in NHS, we were deployed in Italy, Mexico, many countries where we were basically triaging for COVID patients. So that was the first use case. The second use case around COVID was also that because we could measure the size of the consolidation, you could measure if the consolidation is going up or going down. And that is a very important indicator of how you should treat that patient. So from a treatment perspective, we were able to daily, because especially for COVID patients who are in the ICU, they're taking X-rays every day. And on those X-rays, we were able to figure out if the volumes are going down, the infection volumes are going up, going down. And based upon that, you could decide to change the course of treatment. Based upon that, you could decide to let the patient go because the consolidation is completely gone away, discharge the patient. So all of those decisions are being taken based on the algorithm's output for COVID.
You recently did Himalayan expedition in those remote areas. I think radiologists are not readily available. How was the experience for you, and what was it that sparked that interest?
So this all started 2 years ago when one radiologist from University of Pennsylvania, he said that let's go on an expedition to the Everest Base Camp and really see what are the facilities available there and see if AI can play a role in helping that region. So that is when we went. This is Dr. Saurabh Jha from University of Pennsylvania. He organized an expedition where myself and some other people, like Michael from MinX-Ray and Dara and Sahil from Qure, we all went up to the base camp and we met a lot of doctors in the region, in Kathmandu, some in the region of the base camp. And what we found was that the radiology facilities and the radiology read facilities were almost absent. There were some doctors, but that was it. There was one X-ray machine in Lukla, which is where You start the trek to base camp, and from there it's a 10-day walk to the base camp. So it's a long walk. And in that journey, we met one patient who had high altitude pulmonary edema, and they could not get an X-ray because there was no X-ray machine in that vicinity. There was somebody who had a fracture, and again they cannot walk down because you cannot. I mean, either you can take a helicopter down, which is very expensive for locals, or you can walk down, which you cannot if you are not well, right? So they then rely on the treatment that is available. They're not able to get diagnosed. They're not able to get the treatment. So what we said is that let's figure out how to get an X-ray system into the community. So we basically worked with Stop TB Partnership and MinX-Ray to get a mobile X-ray system to donate to the Himalayan Rescue Association. And the second thing that we wanted to do was also that given that these X-rays will be there, but somebody has to read the X-rays also. And obviously there is no radiologist in that whole area. I mean, there is no radiologist. So that is where we said that, okay, let's bring AI also. So basically an X-ray system plus a laptop, which has got AI to read both chest X-rays and musculoskeletal X-rays. So you can detect various kinds of findings from tuberculosis to high altitude pulmonary edema to lung cancer to heart failure to consolidations that we spoke about earlier to fractures, various kinds of fractures from rib fractures to ankle fractures and so on. So we gave that AI plus the X-ray system to the Himalayan Rescue Association that has a small outpost in Ferishe. Ferishe is about an altitude of 4,400 meters. So we donated an X-ray machine funded by Stop TB Partnership to the Ferishe hospital. And so we took that X-ray machine and we actually X-rayed some of our porters. The AI was able to read, some were normal, some were abnormal, and basically get the X-ray read done. And then we demonstrate that, this kind of technology can operate anywhere in the world. So, and this was a backpack X-ray. So it's like a X-ray like this big, you can hold it in your hand just like a camera. And you can take it anywhere. I mean, so we have customers now taking it to really remote parts of Nigeria on a boat. We have mobile vans that are taking these X-ray machines into the community. We have bikes that are taking X-ray machines into the community. So again, the idea is that you can bring the diagnostics to the patient rather than bring the patient to the diagnostics. And that was what we wanted to prove, that this kind of technology can radically democratize access to healthcare. And doing that at the Kala Patthar at 5,600 meters was one way of showing that.
No. That was the technical part of it, but let's also come to the entrepreneurship part of it. Building a startup in any sphere needs a very strong initial foundational team. For anybody who is building a startup in health tech space, what would be your suggestion? How does one pick right people for the right job?
So I think the most non-negotiable thing in terms of hiring talent is drive, right? Ambition and drive are something that are very hard to create from outside. People have to have that inherent drive to build something big. And so for the first 10, 15 people that you hire into the company as a co-founder, as founding members, as initial employees, right? You have to make sure that all of the people have that drive to really build something big. So that is the first thing. The second thing you're looking for is smartness, somebody who is able to learn. And again, smartness can come in multiple ways. Somebody has to be a generalist. Some roles you want to have a generalist because then you can try multiple things, you can experiment, you can figure out what is sticking and go in that direction. So there has to be a lot of first principle thinking in that scenario. Versus somebody who is a very skilled employee. For example, if you're hiring somebody in data science or in engineering, you want somebody who is skilled there, who already knows what to do, right? You don't want to hire somebody who's going to be learning that. So there is some experimentation there, but more of skill that you're looking at. So in places you have to hire skilled people, places you have to hire generalist folks. So I think these are, this sort of hunger is what I call the first one, the ambition. The smartness is what I spoke about. And then humility is something that we really look for. People who are able to learn, able to understand that they might be wrong. Because you have to adapt, especially in today's world, everything changes so rapidly. You have to keep on understanding what is going on, what the market is, how the market is reacting to your products, and what you should change, what is the right product market fit. So again, that humility to understand where you're wrong and change yourself, change the strategy of the company is something which is very important. So we sort of hire in that humble, hungry, smart framework even now. Of course, we hired people like that, but even now we hire people who are hungry, who want to achieve a lot, who are humble to be able to understand where they bring value, where they might be wrong, and people who are smart, who have the skills to really do their job well.
And what would you say about yourself? Because you ran a successful adtech company before. So going through that cycle all over again, coming to the zero and starting from zero, how has that been for you?
I like building technology. I like building algorithms. I like building a company. So yeah, for me, that is fun. And I really enjoyed doing it again.
Wonderful, wonderful. One last question to you. Where do you see AI in radiology or AI in healthcare in general going in India in the next 5 years?
So like I said, I think X-ray reporting will be automated to a large extent across the world. I mean, X-ray reporting is something that is something that a radiologist does not really want to do. So that will be highly automated in the next 5 years. We will see a lot of CT scans and MRIs marked up by the algorithm. It will basically identify where the abnormalities are. It will create a report, even sometimes insert a template report into the EMR system so that the radiologist can edit that. But it will basically, what will happen is for those kinds of modalities, there will be AI which can, from a radiology perspective, AI that can create a partial report for a radiologist, or even a completed report for a radiologist, which can then be edited by them and added to by them. But my perspective is that rather than thinking about what it does for a radiologist, we have to think about what it does for a patient. And from a patient perspective, I think AI will be useful in every part of the diagnostic process. Everything that you do from a diagnostic perspective, the symptoms that the patient has, the X-rays or the CTs, the radiology imaging that is done, pathology imaging that is done, AI will play a role in all of that. It will tie all of that together, and including, for example, data from your smartwatch or your phone, right? So it can basically get in all the sensor data, including data from these EMR systems and imaging systems, and combine all of that to create a better diagnostic for a patient. And that is where AI is headed for sure. The fact that we will all have better diagnostics. And I always like to say that we think of, we go to a doctor when we are sick, right? And same for cars, right? I mean, you take a car to a mechanic when it is not, when there's something breaks down. But with Teslas, we have seen that the algorithms can predict what is going to go wrong even before it goes wrong. And so you can make it more proactive, and we can do the same thing with our bodies as well, that right now we are very reactive in nature with respect to our health, but we can become more proactive when we have data coming from so many different sources about our body, which can then be used to diagnose disease early and start treatment early so that we are fitter and healthier.
And I know I said it was the last question, but I can't help myself but ask this one more question to you. And that is about, what is your vision for Qure.ai?
So our vision is to be to reach 1 billion lives. So be a unicorn in reaching 1 billion lives. And that is the mission that drives everybody in the company. Like you said in the starting, we have reached 20 million, somewhere in the 20 to 25 million range right now. But that is where we are headed. And so that's the single focus for all of us. And again, that will be around multiple therapeutic areas, from tuberculosis to lung cancer to stroke to heart failure, and new therapeutic areas that are coming up. So we'll work in multiple areas, but goal is to reach 1 billion patients.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prashant. Thank you so much for your time. I know you were pressed for time today, but still you made time for us. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the interview.